This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Thursday, the 27th of March, 2025. We're so glad you could join us here today. Coming up a little later on in the program, we'll talk with Jason Meyer of agmarket.net to get a look at the closing market situation. But first, we're going to kick things off by talking with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. We sat down with him for our monthly chat yesterday, and we talked first of all about Iowa Ag Week and also some of the things they're still watching coming out of the legislative session. Well, it's that time once again. Here we are almost to the end of March, and we're sitting down with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. And Secretary, thanks for having a few minutes to talk with us here today.
Hey, you bet. Always great to catch up.
So I'm just going to ask, how close are you to getting those planters rolling already?
Well, we've still got snow drifts in front of the machine shed doors up in Northwest Iowa. Well, not quite, but oh man, you get to this time of year and you start to look at that calendar and you get excited. You can't help it about April. And I've been traveling a fair amount, and I've seen a few folks out scratching around, so I know folks are getting anxious.
Yeah, we were talking about the fact that once those soil temperatures hit 50, it's all bets are off, anhydrous and everything else going on. I know everybody's chomping at the bit. And of course, this week, as we're talking, is Iowa Ag Week after we just had National Ag Week last week. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have to do things a little bit bigger here in Iowa. You know, there's a National Ag Day, but we do an Iowa Ag Week, and we're in the middle of that. And it really is a time just to celebrate the impact of Iowa's agriculture. But we're also going to highlight a few things too around, days of acts of service, honoring the legacy of the Iowa farmer, talking about resiliency. Later this week, I'll be visiting some of the farms that were impacted by tornadoes last year, and talk about the next generation, and then also celebrate our leadership position when it comes to agriculture here in Iowa. Of course, what we want to do is thank those who are involved. But we also want to highlight for those that maybe aren't directly involved in ag, the importance of what we do and how really the American way of life is dependent on our agriculture. So we think it's perfectly acceptable to celebrate all week long, and we'll end with our ag leaders dinner next week, the culmination of a week-long celebration.
And we've talked about this so much in the past, but Iowa has got so much it can hang its hat on when it comes to agriculture. I mean, obviously, the second most ag productive state behind California. When you look at the size discrepancy, that's no small feat. And we have so much to be thankful about. And we have it seems like such a vibrant younger generation that's ready to take over and dig their heels in and start working on the farm as well.
It's important. These are times where you say, look, we have to deal with the here and now. We've got, markets that are challenging for us. We've got high input costs. We've got, a year that's got some headwinds and some uncertainty coming at us. And at the same time, we have to look far enough ahead to have that vision to say, well, what are the things that we have to make sure are done so that we can be successful into the future, take care of our soil and our water, have predictability and stability when it comes to policy and access to capital. Encourage that next generation. I don't mind telling you, I was with some third graders, some fourth graders, and some eighth graders yesterday in classrooms, all about talking about the next generation. And these are not all farm kids that I was talking to either, and just trying to really talk about all the opportunities, all the needs that exist within the ag community. It's not just what happens on the farm that is involved in agriculture. It's the things that happen on both ends, upstream and downstream from the farm, that are so critically important. And there's really a place for everyone. And what better way to give back to folks than to provide them with something that they need every single day, that being food. And so, I'm excited by what I see. Not to say there aren't challenges in terms of that next generation and transition planning, but it's work that's important, and we need to get on with it.
All right, and let's move on to some other topics. We know the legislative session is getting really close to that finish line, but yet it seems like there's a lot of things that still have to be decided that I know IDALS is watching very closely.
Yeah, there is. It's always a fast kind of sprint to the finish line, it seems, and especially as the legislature finishes work on policy, but also really dives into the budget. And we're still awaiting those budget target, those numbers that the appropriators will be working with. And we are asking for some modest increases to help continue to support the operations of the department and to be able to invest in some really strategic, important areas, one being the animal industries, to continue to enhance our work around trying to prevent or respond to a foreign animal disease like high path, like African swine fever, foot and mouth disease. We're also really want to push into and expand our efforts around market development when it comes to local foods. So everything from on-farm dairy processing, on-farm technology investments for dairy, meat processing, selling direct to consumer, really all about Iowa grown, Iowa made, Iowa raised products, that being our Choose Iowa program. And so we are asking for some additional support there. And then, of course, we just want to keep the pedal to the floor when it comes to water quality. We've set records for conservation adoption the last 3 years in the state of Iowa. And we want to make sure that we can continue to say that we're setting records each year. If you're going to do that, you have to have a sustained focus, and you've got to continue to support that work, both the people and the financial assistance that we need to make those practices happen across the state. So working with all of our partners. So those are a couple of the key priorities. But of course, we're watching things like property tax cuts and balanced budgets. All of those things are really important. It doesn't matter if you're a farm business, an ag business, or any family in the state of Iowa. Those are things that matter to you. And so we support and work on a lot of other issues outside of just specifically the farm sector.
And that again was Iowa Agriculture Secretary Mike Naig, and we'll have more from him coming up next week on Iowa Ag Matters. Right now, we're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, we'll talk about the closing markets. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. We're back on Ag Matters PM now, and we're joined by Jason Meyer of agmarket.net to run down those closing numbers for us today. And Jason, what did we see happen in those grains today?
I think the big thing we saw today in the grain market was the strength in the soybeans. That was led by soybean oil, and that kind of started this morning. There's some rumors circulating that President Trump wants big oil and the ag people to get together and maybe talk about a new biofuels policy, and the strength in the soybean oil kind of spilled over to soybeans and helped the soybean market finish a nice strong up day. And the corn was just a little bit off again, but we traded below the 200-day moving average yesterday. So technically there's some selling that's occurring because of that.
So I was just going to ask, because corn started out the day a little bit higher, but then dropped after the open here. What was that pressure on it? Just that moving average resistance there?
Yep, I would say just the moving average number. And then export sales this morning, they weren't terrible, but they weren't great. But the technical pressure just is too strong to overcome right now.
So, we got a kind of a double whammy facing us here. I mean, we're looking at March 31st with the planning intentions and also the quarterly grain stocks, but also then we're looming with more tariffs coming in the beginning of April there. I mean, is that putting a lot of pressure on the market, or is it kind of anticipating that ahead of time?
Yeah, so I think the marketplace has looked for more corn acres to be planted here and less bean acres. So that's kind of a known fact. The quarterly stocks report is going to be maybe more interesting for me to watch. We've had fantastic exports on corn here. So there's some chatter in the marketplace that maybe the government's going to reduce the corn ending stocks in the U.S. So that should be very beneficial. And the bean stocks, that's kind of a unknown number right now, but not much is being said about that.
All right. And is there any worry about increasing tariffs here at the beginning of April, like the president's talking about?
And there's definitely that tariff talk. But it seems like the last couple of months we get close to that tariff date, and they get that can gets kicked down the path again. So there's some concern, and I think that's kind of keeping the longs from coming into the marketplace until we know for sure what tariffs are going to be. It's hard to get too excited from the long side in the marketplace.
All right, moving over to the livestock side of things, cattle and hogs, what do we see coming out of those markets today?
The cattle market started the day off sharply lower, just kind of export sales this morning were rather weak and kind of concerning on the beef side. China has been absent from buying any U.S. beef for the last 2 weeks. Then on the hog side, everybody's talking about the quarterly hogs number today. Should be a little bit bearish. We're talking about the second highest inventory on record, but the strength in the cattle market kind of lent over to the hog market and took hogs well off its lows to end the day here.
All right. Well, if folks want to talk to you guys at agmarket.net, maybe figure out what some of their plans should be, maybe finalize some plans they've got with their trading, what's the best way for them to do that?
Check us out at agmarket.net and give myself or one of my teammates a call, and we'd be happy to speak with you.
All right, Jason, we thank you so much for the insight, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, Dustin. Everybody enjoy this nice weather we're having.
And that again was Jason Meyer of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing numbers on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen. At the close, May corn down 1 1/4 at $4.50 even. Soybeans up 15 3/4 at $10.16 3/4. Soy meal up 90 cents at $2.9450 per ton. Soy oil up $1.63 at $44.27. Chicago wheat down 3 1/4 at $5.32 even. Kansas wheat up 1 1/4 at $5.66 1/4. Minneapolis spring wheat up 3 1/4 at $5.88 1/2. Oats is down 4 1/4 at $3.57 even. On the Merc, live cattle $2.47 higher at $209.55. Feeders up $1.67 at $287.55. Lean hogs down 52 cents at $87.02. Pork cutouts unchanged at $98.07. And Class 3 milk up 13 cents at $17.21. And that was a check of our closing market recap, and that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, X, and on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you can be notified each time we put out a new video project. Also, don't forget about the 3 market podcasts with analysis sent free of charge to your mobile device 3 times a day, openings, middays, and closings. You can find those wherever you get your favorite market podcasts. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.